Hi, welcome to Future Fast. And once again, we have our guest, Karolina Lisslö Gylfe. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I really urge you to look up. There are two fantastic conversations we've had with her, two parts you don't want to miss. In the first part, she talks about her journey. And in the second part, what they're doing and why they're doing and what is their argument for doing it, particularly on why clean energy and why genetically modified. So you may be part of any school of thought in terms of for or against, but these are very important conversations. Listen to her before you jump to the conclusion that this is right or this is wrong. It's very important that you participate in conversations, and conversation starts with listening. And that you have made a decision to be part of Future Fast itself is a great step, and thank you for doing that. And I hope you're enjoying it. If you have not yet listened to other conversations, do follow. There are some amazing conversations, and some of them contradict. But that's the whole idea of doing this, that bring in different conversations even if they're contradicting. The whole idea is that we get different conversations and form our own opinion on that. And with that, I would like to jump into the conversation with Carolina. Thank you so much for being part of this. Welcome to Future Fast once again.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Right. Carolina, this is the part we talk about future. So, what's your perspective on the future from where you stand today?
Well, I always choose hope. So I believe that there is a bright future, and I think that we will continue to develop both as a planet and as people. And I know that right now, I mean, we're in October 2023, and there is a lot of horrible things going on right now. So it's hard to remember that we already have made a tremendous journey where we have developed both in health, in economic growth, in education. So even though it doesn't feel like we're moving towards a better future, we still are, even though there is a lot of conflicts in the world. But I do think that we will overcome this, and we will continue to develop towards the good.
Right. Well, as a person heading an organization which is uh, kind of backward focused, as in to say that you're looking at current problems or the problems that have been there, right? The energy is a current problem, but of course, with the future implication. But most times, people want to solve their today's problem. So, as a organization which addresses developmental issues, environmental issues, energy issues, like you mentioned, there is so much of yesterday and today. And uh, when you and you said that you, I mean, I urge the listeners, if you're not listening to it, please do go back. Her argument's always been science first, so that's a great start. But we also had one very interesting response on that. But how do you see and time and again motivate your own people from doing today's campaigns versus keeping balance with the future impact? How does that work?
Well, I mean, just if you take the clean energy campaigns that we're running, I do believe we can have that green transition with the help of nuclear and renewable in the future. And since we know that I think it's about 7 or 9 million people die every year from fossil free, not fossil free, sorry, from fossil fuels. I think that encourages to move forward, because that's a lot of lives that we could actually just prevent by turning into clean energy. So I think that's very encouraging. If you look on consumption,
You're referring to 7, 8 million people dying because of fossil fuel in which context?
Oh, pollutions
Pollution,
from
right. At this point,
transportation.
sorry, I'll just do a small interruption. We had a guest, Adrian Blanc. I really urge the listeners and audience to look it up. Some very interesting conversations. And he actually made one point. I don't really remember exact number, but he does make a argument that, well, incidentally, you both would be on the same side when it is for nuclear, Carolina. He's a for nuclear man, but at the same time, he comes from petroleum industry, right? He works for one of the largest petroleum corporations. So he actually makes an argument on the same thing about number of deaths or number of casualties uh, coming from uh, uh, otherwise in the process of production of renewables. So that's an interesting conversation. You don't want to miss Adrian Blanc. And also there was uh, 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 Walker. You actually mentioned his name as you looked him up as well. He is a pro nuclear uh, person. So his conversation also you'll find it very relevant in this context. Yeah, please, Carolina, go ahead.
Yeah, just to come back to the pollution, and it's also from cooking on by wood. Like a large part of the population still cooks over fire. And by living in really polluted city areas, or by cooking on woods, the particles you get, the first symptoms is usually you get asthma or allergies, but then it actually can bring you lung and heart diseases. And I was speaking to a friend of mine who works for Amnesty International here in Sweden, and we were talking about this chronic lung disease that you can get. And here in Sweden, you normally get diagnosed by that if you're really a heavy smoker from cigarettes in the age of 70. And she said from countries where she's been visiting in Asia, even kids and as young as 5 years old have this chronic lung disease from just breathing the air in the city, or from the fumes of cooking on woods. So this is the future I want to see. Everybody be able to cook on electricity. Everyone to live in pollution-free cities. That means we can save up to 9 million people per year just by small energy transition. I just say small, but it's huge.
Right. But yeah, I think the cost remains the challenge, right, in terms of setting up nuclear power plants across the globe, everywhere. So that's a huge uh, economic challenge for many of the countries to keep up with that. And I think that has been one of the arguments also in
But
that transition to happen.
it all depends how you compare the numbers, because I've seen studies that makes it being one of the most expensive, and I also see reports that shows that it's one of the most cost effective. Depends if you put it out on the length of the power plant and how many terawatt hours it will produce, and also if it's subsidy.
Correct. That's the usual argument. But the only thing is the starting point, right? At the start, they need to shell out a lot.
And I guess that the world leaders have to decide how much is a life worth, because yeah.
So you're saying that rich countries will subsidize it for poor countries going forward to go for nuclear? Do you see that coming?
I hope so. That's again is a legislation problem. Right now we have some bans, even in Europe, that we can't build power plants. If I go back to Sweden, the restrictions we have today is only 6 6 places allowed in Sweden to build power plants. So of course, it's a lot of regulations and bans that needs to be lifted to do that. But today, for example, if you look on subsidies to the global south, they are mainly appointed to renewables only. Even though when I went to the African Climate Week earlier this year, and there is several of other African countries that would like to build nuclear, but since they're not getting the subsidies to do that, it's easier option that makes it much cheaper and faster than to focus only on the renewables instead of focus on all the clean sources that you need. But on the other hand, the renewables, which is of course, the fastest to build, but it doesn't secure the 24/7 reliance on energy sources, because it doesn't work and you don't have the ready infrastructures for batteries or storage of renewable energy. So some countries are more beneficial. They might have hydro that can compensate for this, but for countries that don't, the nuclear would be a good option to support the development of the renewables. So of course subsidies could be a part of that, but I also think that one of the prior focus for all governments should be the health of their population and the ability to have clean energy, because that will be the clean energy will help the transition of both in industry, but also in the health aspect and a thriving population. So yeah.
So who would you want to list as the people who are impacting future from today's perspective? You see, what kind of people would you classify as those who are impacting?
You, me, every people we know, every people they know, and so on. I think we are all. I mean, as I said, we are all affecting our future by the choices we do today on individual level. I think that the more we get engaged, instead of closing our eyes and wishing that things go away that concerns us and our kids, try to get involved.
Karolina, that's a very, very activist response. It's you and me who make a change. But someone like you who's heading this organization and who talk to policymakers and all, what are the kind of things you see impacting change fastest, right? I think government response is very critical here, as much as we just talked about in earlier conversation. I recall you mentioned that sometimes it takes forever to impact a change.
Yeah. And it will change. It will take forever, unfortunately, in some parts of the world. I mean, we still have countries that doesn't allow women to study. How will we then tell these women that they shouldn't cook with wood because it will harm their kids? I mean, it will take a long time in certain areas. So of course government will and governance will play a huge role in this. And I don't say that everybody has to fight for the same causes as I do, but we should all sort of same for the overall cause of humanity and our planet. And if you don't feel like you know too much about environment because you think that's hard, well, fight for education. And I don't think you can ever go wrong by fighting for education. Because it is education and what we tell our kids that will show them and put their imagination into to work on what the future looks like. And I know that many parents just love their iPad because they can it can make their 2-year-old quiet for a while. But but maybe at some point it's, time also to realize that spending that hour with your kids, allowing it to maybe be loud and be part of cooking or building a fence or whatever you're doing at the moment, might be better in the long run. But I think it's important for everyone to believe in something, and something good, that is. I don't want everybody to believe in something of destruction. So but pick one fight toward a future. I think that's important, and try to back that chosen area up with science. And when I see science, and the same that you say, well, you can find science on both sides. So search for science from both sides, and then pick your opinion. But pick a fight, even if that sounds activist. Just at least pick one fight, and then join others that wants to pick that fight, because that's good.
I think very well put. Yeah, fantastic.
But
So
one last thing about that fight: don't make it violent. Don't make that fight violent. Make it a non-violent fight, but run it.
Wonderful. So, are you ready to make predictions? What can we expect in future to happen? At least 3.
I think my prediction is that we will have a lot more of clean energy coming, and that will, include nuclear and renewables, for sure. I believe that there will be more people picking one fight. I think that we will have and see and hear a lot more of young voices raising around the world. I think that people will find ways. I think that, trends are changing all the time, and I think that within a short future we will see influencers. It's already been, you see this influence coming already from influencer chefs cooking much more plant-based. You have Michelin stars shifting towards only plant-based. So I think we will not get stuck in this, like, ooh, I don't like my greens. I think that people will appreciate much more the plant-based. And when I say that, I also have to, keep in mind, this is a little bit about the northern hemisphere, because we eat way too much meat. By being privileged of traveling a bit, I know that there is, delicious plant-based food over the whole world. So this is mostly, and hopefully that the meat-eating countries will appreciate their veggies a little bit more. I also see the big change of the alternative proteins. So, those stubborn meat eaters that will refuse to give up their steak, they will actually see those lab-grown meat, or the cultivated, like brewed, because they like beer. Many people like beer. So when they realize you can actually make a steak in the same technique as you brew beer, then people will say, oh, that sounds gross. I have to taste that. Can't be true. And they will taste it, like, oh, it tastes just like meat, And so I
that's
think
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I had the opportunity. So I've been trying those Impossible burgers. It looks like, meat and it bleeds, but it's all vegetarian. And also this lab-grown meat. And the texture is there, and you can't believe it's not meat. And by be able to actually, because I mean, some of it will be animal protein, because you will take one animal cell and just, with electric impulses and solutions, get that into the texture of a meat cell or animal cell. That's I think is amazing. So I think we will see more and more of the future in our homes in terms of eating. That will happen. Right now it still sounds science fiction. It's just a few restaurants that have this in really particular restaurants, but I think this will come more and more. And you can see, if you look to, I think it's Singapore that already have their first you can buy in the grocery store this cultivated like animal protein that has been no animals involved. So I think we will see more and more of this, the animal protein without no damage or harm to the animal itself. Yeah, that's my prediction.
Wow, interesting. Okay. So, yeah, but all of them are very near, so I'm sure we'll be around to check how much of it. But interesting. In India, anyway, we've been having a very long argument about veg and vegetarian and non-vegetarian for a long time, and there are a lot of vegetarians who are migrating to non-vegetarian and non-vegetarians who are migrating to become vegetarian. So this is a very much an ongoing thing here. But it's interesting that vegetarian, we actually non-meat is more referred to as vegetarian. There's a proper term here. Right? There it's more a non-meat because much of the population was meat. And also the argument of the weather was compelling them to be meat eaters. So interesting. We'll just have to see how this lab uh, lab meat, which is essentially veg source, how it will change. But yeah, interesting times for sure. Thank you, Carolina. This is interesting. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
I remember
yeah.
growing up. Oh, sorry. No, I remember when I was growing up, the people that turned vegetarian or vegan were the one who cared about the animals. They didn't want to do animals harm. Most of my friends today that are vegans don't eat vegan because of climate reasons. So that's a shift already there. The reason you turn to plant-based. So,
Yeah, it's a good argument too. True. Uh, uh, yes, I've been. I tried being a vegan, but I have some very strong opinions on that. But I've become a. I've stopped eating meat for over 10 years now. So, but yeah, it's not very common. But there are more and more people becoming uh, uh, vegetarians, which I think is good. Vegan, I'm not really sure because some of the things I don't really like, honey for that matter. They don't want honey because it comes from bee. So I grew up with honey, so I don't think it's the right thing to do. So there are very strong opinions on that. But yeah, interesting. And thank you. And one last thing before we close, I just wanted to ask: is there a shout out you want to give to people? Because we also have audience coming from across India to few other countries. So, is there any shout out for any of your preferred campaign, or a shout out for even to see if there is Replanet that they want to be part of in some way? Do you want to give a shout out? Please go ahead.
Yes, I mean there's also campaigns coming up quite soon, but I mean please check out our rebootfood.org campaign, which is really about alternative proteins and how to change to the plant-based diet. Of course, the Dear Greenpeace that we've been speaking about here also. And if you go to our website, replanet.ngo, and find out about our member organizations, they also run separate campaigns in various countries. So right now, for example, Replanet Africa is also running an energy campaign because Africa needs more than one light bulb, is the slogan of that campaign. So if you're also interested on how to get into the fast transition into clean energy and want to become a climate activist that believes believes that people can be part of the solution for a better world, please join us.
Wonderful. And all the links are there below this podcast. So please, to the audience and listeners, click, follow, look up, write, and be a part of the solution, like Karolina said. And till we meet again, enjoy the ride. And if you have not yet subscribed to Future Path, it's the time to do it now. And do share this across your network as well. Thank you once again. Karolina, thank you so much. This was wonderful. And all the best for all the campaigns. And keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And let's keep in touch.
Positive.
Okay. Thank you.